Issues like immigration and the economy help drive up support, especially among Texas voters, to send President Trump back to the White House. Now, after more than 100 days into his second term, a new poll gives some insight about how 1,200 registered Texas voters feel about the job he's doing so far. The Texas Politics Project and the University of Texas shared those results today of a poll done last month. And this afternoon, we're going to talk through some of those results with James Henson. He's the director of the Texas Politics Project, and he's here in studio with us. So welcome and thanks for being with us.
Great to be back, Will.
So there have been so many national polls done since the 100-day milestone for President Trump, and I've been wanting to see what your results would show because I knew one was coming from the Texas Politics Project. So talk about how this group of Texas voters is feeling about President Trump and the job he's doing so far.
Well, we're happy for your anticipation. These numbers are in line with what we've seen nationally, albeit for a very Republican and conservative state like Texas. Donald Trump's job approval numbers have cooled since February. His approval numbers gone down about 5 points. He's at 47 approved, 46 disapprove, which is largely where the band he was in for most of his first term.
Almost a pretty even split then, with at least with this snapshot of voters.
Yeah, very even split. And what we saw, thinking about where he was at over 50% in February, is just a 2 or 3 point attrition among Republicans, Democrats, and independents. So there was no big movement, just a little movement in each group.
So what do you attribute that slight, maybe slippage to in this poll?
Well, I think the setup in the first two stories that you guys did sets us up perfectly. So
right.
Good job. People are becoming more focused on the economy, and they have anxiety and negative feelings about that amidst all the uncertainty. And they're paying a bit less attention to immigration and the border because the nature of that story has shifted. You just did a story on efforts to self-deport, not on the much less ambiguous situation of huge crowds and a crisis on the border.
Yeah, definitely different visuals for sure. And we're running through some of the results that you showed. People, at least the disapproval of the way that Trump has handled not only the economy, but trade negotiations as well as inflation and prices. However, the Republicans who responded to your poll and identified as that did show strong support for the things that he's doing. So should the president worry at all about that?
Well, far be it from me to know whether the president should be worried or not.
Sure.
But I will tell you this. Look, his numbers among Republicans, the approval rating for his handling of immigration and border security, tends to be much higher right now among Republicans than it is for trade negotiations, his handling of prices. So, I think at least his advisors should be worried about that because he's doing well on one signature issue of his, immigration and the border, but not as well on something that in his last term was his signature issue, which was, I'm a good businessman, I can manage the economy. A little less in evidence now.
Sure, and we want to ask about some of the other things that you all found in your poll, particularly a signature item for the governor here in Texas. Just this last weekend, he signed private school subsidies into law. This is the main priority he wanted to see passed during this session. What did voters say about that when you asked them last month?
Well, the public opinion in Texas has not changed much on that. We've talked about this before. The plurality, usually sometimes even a bare majority in the low 50s. In this poll, 48% supported ESAs, 35% opposed them. Pretty good, except that when you ask how important it is for the legislature to act on this or whether this is going to help public education, ESAs slip down in the rankings and are ranked almost last in terms of what voters think is important. So it's kind of like they'll take it, but it's not something that they're clamoring for.
In that list of things, what usually floats to the top, according to those voters?
Yeah, look, some of that has been consistent, and some of it reflects this economic concern. Right at the top, making sure that the grid is reliable. Legislature's still working on that in a little more diffuse way this time, but also things like healthcare, other infrastructure issues like water. Mostly very practical issues in terms of what Texas voters on the whole think is important.
Additionally, one thing that we're seeing coming up here somewhat relatively soon are the elections that will be happening in 2026. You all in this poll asked about how voters felt about a number of Texas leaders, particularly Senator John Cornin and Attorney General Ken Paxton. They may very well face off against each other in the Republican primary for the Senate seat next year. What does the poll show about how voters feel about the two men?
Well, it shows a different situation for the primary than it does for the general election, in that if you think about a Republican primary right now, the Republican primary electorate is pretty small relative to the overall population, not going to be more than a couple million people. Those primary voters, the most conservative Republicans, tend to be more favorably inclined towards Ken Paxton than they are towards John Cornyn. Neither is amazingly popular, has very high favorability ratings, even among Republicans. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the favorability ratings among Republicans for each, Republicans think about 59% have a favorable view of Paxton, 46% have a favorable view of Cornyn. But you ask about Donald Trump, 89% have a favorable view of Donald Trump. One of the reasons that Trump endorsement is one of the key underlying factors in the kind of pre-election jockeying in that 2026 Republican primary.
And it will be so fascinating to see whether or not he will weigh into this race. I would imagine he might share his perspective at some point, so we'll just have to wait and see.
I think so, and I think not everybody that's going to get in that race is in that race, and both of the major candidates are maneuvering, I think, to get someone else in that will give them more of an advantage.
All right. Well, Jim Henson, we appreciate you so much again for coming and talking to us about this. These numbers, I dove right into them at 8 o'clock this morning. I was so fascinated by it, so we appreciate you taking the time to talk more about it.
Great to be with you, Willie. People can find it at texaspolitics.utexas.edu.
And I would suggest check it out when you can. All right.